Hey guys, BW here, and we're back out in the garage. I just recently found out if we want to attend any indoor car shows, most fire marshals want your fuel level to be at a quarter tank or below. We don't have our fuel gauge or our float hooked up on our fuel cell. Yes, there is one there. It's right here. And we even ran a line, Phil and I, when we did the wiring a couple years ago. It's just laying there. And it does go up to the fuel gauge on the dash. I don't know that the ohms would match for the fuel float and the gauge anyway. And I'm being honest, I really am not comfortable hooking power up to an aftermarket fuel cell. I just don't want to do it. It's an unnecessary hazard. I don't need a fire hazard. Maybe it's minuscule if at all, but I don't even want to take the chance. So as an industrial mechanic, I came up with an industrial mechanic solution. Let's just put a manual gauge right on the tank, and it's going to be 100% accurate. So the first thing I did is I went shopping on the internet, and I got a hold of the John Ellsworth company, and I got a mechanical fuel gauge with a float. They come in different lengths. I think ours is like 10 and a quarter, something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to look at the invoice. But what it does is, if you look here, that's going to be too low because it's going to go down into the sump. But this needs a bulkhead fitting. And by the time we put the bulkhead fitting on there and screw this in, it's not going to go 100% flush. Everybody that has screwed in an 1.5-inch pipe thread knows that it's a tapered thread, and it's going to stop about 1/8 to 1/4 above the bulkhead fitting. So if my math is right, I ordered the right gauge, and that will put our float right at the top of the sump, right on it, and put it right on E. That's my plan. I consider the sump part of the fuel line because, I mean, we're just going to measure the cube of the fuel cell itself. If that makes sense to everybody. That's how the mechanical, or excuse me, the electrical float, it's out here. It's not in the sump. So, and it's actually not to the bottom. I think this is actually going to be even more accurate, to be honest with you. All right. So the first thing I want to do is empty the fuel out of the tank. So let's get that done. You can see how nice and neat everything is. You know, when you built the car, you know exactly where everything is and exactly everything you need to do a job. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take this bracket off. We put those fittings into our frame. Those riveted threads a couple years ago. They're real handy. They do a good job. Get this off. Once we get this off, we can clamp off the line. I'd like to clamp off the line. I'd like to make a minimal amount of mess as possible. I'm sure everybody can understand that. So I'm going to vice grip the hose and hope for the best. Hopefully, see, you got that fitting there that we used. All right, now let me see if I can just cut the gas off by clamping the hose. That way we can control it a little bit, right? I got one for the other side too, just because. Alright, you know, while we're here, we might be able to check this is a cleanable, reusable filter. Maybe we'll check to see how dirty the screen is, and that shouldn't be bad, but you never know, right? So we're going to have a little bit of gas that's going to come down. Maybe I should get myself a container. Hang on a minute. Well, I got the can to catch any residuals. My hope is this vice grip holds back the fuel long enough so that I can get the hose over to my can and we can harvest the gas and not have a mess, and even put it back in when we're done. So we'll see how all that works out. Let's see here. Should be lefty loosey, I think. There it is. There's a little bit of fuel there. Hopefully it isn't going to be too messy. I feel like it's going to be a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad. There we go. All right. Let's good there. I'll just slide this hose over into the gas can and open her up. And it's flowing. We got us an empty tank. So let's take this flange off, see if we can get a little more access. And we'll put something in there to protect against the shavings so our cleanup's going to be easier. And we'll lay this thing out. Yep, we lost that down into the tank. We'll get it. That gives us a little more access. A lot more access, actually. Let you guys check it out. There you go. Our ring fell down in there, but that's all right. Okay, well, we taped down a piece of paper. The tank width is like 19 7/8, so it's really about 19 15/16. So we went 9 15/16 in from each side and came up with our center there. And I'm coming in 2.5 inches. That's plenty of room for our bulkhead fitting where it's going to be, and it puts us about halfway on the slant of our sump that's down in the tank. And you can see I got a piece of cloth there that's going to catch as much of the shavings as I can. Obviously, after we drill, we're going to also wipe it out and vacuum out if necessary. So let me get this drilled. Now, the first thing I want to do is put a pilot hole. All right, now let's get our hole saw set up. We don't need paper anymore because we got our pilot hole. That's where she's going to be. There is no turning back now. We got some vacuuming to do, that's for sure. Alright, here we go. Safety glasses. Alright, we are through, guys. We got a big old hole in our fuel cell now and a heck of a mess to clean up, but there it is, okay? So obviously we got some big cleanup to do. Let me get the vacuum out. Let me get all that cleaned up. This is obviously one of the more critical parts of the job, to get all these shavings vacuumed out of here, cleaned out of here, because we don't need it clogging up our fuel line or our filter. Guys, we got it cleaned out really good. Inside and out, there's no shavings in there. I want you to know I got my deburring tool out and I ran it around here. You don't want any loose things that could break off later. I know that the gasket will be there, but you know, in between the gasket and the tank, it's just make sure, you know, do a nice deburr job. If this is what you choose to do with yours, I don't know. All right, at this time, I think I want to screw the gauge into this and then put it down in, and then we'll screw the nut up on there. That way we can position it right where we want it and verify that the height is going to be right. Because like I was showing you guys earlier, right now, before we use the bulkhead fitting and screw this in, we're going to be a hair too long, right? But the thinking is we're going to end up like right about there when we're done. All right, so let's get to it. Okay guys, you can see I have the gauge just sitting in there. I got the nut and everything here, and this is what I talked about between the gasket, the bushing, and this is a, you know, the 1.5 inches. You guys know that thread pipe's tapered. I knew it wasn't going to go flush, and if I was to flex this too much, you could always break the glass on that fitting. That is as tight as it can get. All right, so I'll let you guys look down inside the tank for yourselves. See if I can show you what I did. I don't know whether you guys can see that. I put a scale right there for reference, so you can see that the float bars and the scale, that's exactly where it landed, just right above the sump. All right, so the only thing that's not going to be measured is the sump. I'm gonna camera out. That's about the best I can do for camera views. I put you in the tank. I can't wait to see what that looks like on camera. Okay guys, well, we got her. It's on there, and it looks really good. We got it straight as we could get it. Now we know that the inside of this is pipe thread, the outside is a straight thread. I got it as tight as I could get it, and I put Loctite on it, and that should be good to prevent it from coming loose. You guys can see the flex on the gaskets, so I mean, it's tight. So that's the best we can do. So let's go in reverse order. First, let's put these flange back on the top, get that put back together, and I think after that I want to pull the while we got it apart, let's pull the filter out and make sure the screen is clear under there. But let me do this real quick and put this flange back on. See, I took the filter out just to check it, and you guys can see how clean the screen is. All right, I think Earl was the guy stealing all the screens out of the faucets in school back in the day. Look at that. Huh? All right, well, let me screw this back together and put the fuel line back on, and we can fill this tank up and see how our gauge operates. My son gave it to me. If you know, you know. Okay guys, well, that's it for this video. The gauge is surprisingly accurate. You know, this is a 10-inch high tank, so 2.5 inches would be a quarter tank. It's just under a quarter tank on the gauge, and I'm reading about, I don't know, 2 3/8 ish. So I mean, we're really close. So it's calibrated really well. Me sitting here, it does bounce a little bit, but I think once the fuel, you know, levels out, you can get an accurate reading. So that's great. This gauge specifically on the John Ellsworth company, you go on there and search them yourself on Google. This gauge is for a generator tank. I couldn't find anything that would be like, you know, off-roading, because that's the kind of gauge I was looking for. And lo and behold, I was in there eating my lunch just about a half hour ago, and you know how like when you buy something, you know, the advertisements come up. Well, it came up for the Ellsworth, and it was a off-roading gauge, and you can get them in the same lengths, and everything's the same except that I guess they're calibrated for more bounce, you know, and stuff. So and they're cheaper, but they're plastic, but they're 1.5 inch thread. So I may buy myself one and change it out eventually. I mean, we're going to see how long this one holds up, you know, and see how it goes. But yeah, you know, they are out there. So I advise you to check the website. Now, the bulkhead fitting, I got that off of Amazon. It was 28 bucks. So you can just go to Amazon and say, you know, bulkhead fitting, whatever size. This was 1.5 inch ID. That's what you need, an 1.5 ID. And the OD was like, I don't know, a little over 2. So, and we used the whole saw. You guys saw the whole video. You know what we did and the end result. My little sticker my son gave me on there. If you know about it, you know about it. I hope you guys got something out of this. I sure did. I had some fun. We're still doing a couple more jobs on this before I tuck it away in the trailer for winter. And once I do that, guys, I promise we're jumping back on the Nova. I got boxes everywhere. And with this car out of here and in the trailer, I'll have a whole side of a shop to work, and it'll be just like when I was building this one. I'll work on it all winter. All right? So until next time, take care, everybody.